In the previous video, we looked at file handling in Python, and we went through what are the different ways in which we can store a string in Python, and how do we read those files, and how do we append something to those files, and what are the different methods that are there for a file object. And when we started the discussion, I told you that in Python we often need to work with text data, but sometimes we also need to work with binary data, which is not in text format. And most common example of that is images and audio. So now that we have understood everything about text, in this video we will go through what are the different ways in which we can save binary data, and also save working with Python objects. So I ended the last video with a discussion on how if we have a list in Python, we will not be able to save it, or we will not be able to persist that information in a file by using the traditional method that I showed you for strings. So how do we work with Python objects, or if we have created maybe a function, or if you have written some logic in Python, how do we save it? And at the same time, how do we also work with like images or audio, video, etc. So audio and video will not go into this video, but I'll show you how we work with images. Okay. So let us first start with, so let me just lay down what are the things I'm going to discuss. So first we are going to discuss serialization and deserialization, and this is how we are going to save Python objects in Python. And after that, we'll also see how we can read images in Python. Okay. So once we have done this, then we will go to reading images in Python. So once you know how to read images, the same logic will apply to any other type of binary object also. So let us get started. So the problem statement here is that we want to store this Python list in a file in such a way that the property of this being a list is remains intact, and we should be able to read the file and get this list back. Earlier I showed you that if we write this file using file.write or file.write lines, it is getting saved, but it is getting saved as a string, and the list attribute or list property of this object is lost. So we want to retain that list behavior of this Python object. So for that, what we are going to do is we are going to use serialization and deserialization. Serialization basically means converting any Python object to a byte stream. Byte stream is again nothing but, you can think of it as binary data. Binary data is 0 and 1. You know, all the information that we are saving is always stored in the form of zeros and 1. So we are going to convert this to binary data, serialize it and store it, and then we are going to deserialize it. And the most popular or most acceptable way currently of doing that is using JSON format. Now JSON format is a universal format that is accepted by everyone, all different programming languages. It's a common format of data for information exchange. Okay, so in all the APIs, whenever right now we have not discussed about APIs, but even in the future you will find yourself very often working with JSON data. So let us see how we are going to save this as a file, and if we do it using an example, then probably you will understand it better. So we are going to use JSON library in Python. It is not available by default, so we have to import it. I'm not sure at this point in time you are familiar with importing modules. If not, then just ignore this statement for now. Maybe in upcoming module we'll discuss about this. But in order to have this JSON functionality, we have to use this line, which is import JSON. Okay. um, for example, if we have to work with list is built in Python. We don't have to do any kind of import. We don't have to get list from anywhere. Or for example, if we are working with dictionary, we don't have to get it from outside. It is already built in Python. But JSON we need to import, although it is there when Python is installed. This JSON functionality is there, but in order to use it in the file, we have to use this import JSON statement. So I've done this, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to convert this list to a JSON object. And when we do convert this to a JSON object, JSON basically stands for JavaScript object notation. Let me just verify. JSON stand for JavaScript object notation. Object notation, and it's a very popular, very common way of storing information for sending across different kinds of systems. So we are going to store this list as a JSON object. How are we going to do it? In order to use JSON, we are going to do something very similar to what we were doing earlier. We are going to open a file, and then we are going to write this list in that file, but except that instead of a normal file, we are going to use JSON. So just see what I'm doing. I'm saying with open, and I'm going to open a file. Let me call it list.json, and I'm going to open it in write mode, and I'm going to say as file, and then I will say json.dump. Okay, json.dump, and I need to provide two things here. One is what I need to dump. Okay, which is list of names, and where I should dump it. Okay, so I should dump it in file. So I've opened a file, then I have an object, and I'm saying JSON should dump that Python object into the file. So if I run this, and now if I go back here, you will see here I should have something called list.json, and if I open it, it looks like a it looks like a file, it looks like a list, but it is not a string. Okay, and if I want to read this, this actually is actually a list here which is saved as a list, and if I want to read this, then what I can do with open, and I can say list.json, and I want to open it in write mode. I'm going to say file, and I'm going to say json dot read, sorry, json dot load, and I'm going to say file, and I'm going to store it as data. Okay, and then if I look at data, you see I'm getting back the list, I'm not getting back any string. And if I want to, if I check this, if I do a type on this data, you see it is a list. So what we did, we had a list, we were able to save that list as a Python, as we were able to save that list as a object, and that object is a JSON object, and then we were able to read that object back, or read that file back, in order to get our initial list. I hope this is clear to everyone. Now let us try to do the same thing using for a dictionary as well. Okay, so instead of list of names, let me create a dictionary. Let me create my dictionary, and let me have dictionary here. Let me say name is Ram, and I will say city is Delhi. Okay, so this is the dictionary, and I now want to save this dictionary. So can I save this dictionary normally as a string? No, I will not be able to save it. I need to have, if I do the previous method, I need to have a string. So how do I save a dictionary? So I'm going to save this dictionary as a JSON. Okay, and very commonly when you see JSON, you will see JSON as a dictionary. Most commonly here I was just saving a list, so you saw it as a list. But normally when you come across JSON, JSON will appear very very similar to how dictionaries appear in Python. Okay, so except that JSON can be read in any programming language. All programming languages, all different types of platforms, every place supports JSON. JSON is very very universal. So we are trying to save this dictionary as a file. So let us come here and say with open, and I'm going to open a file. Let me call a dictionary dot json, and I'm going to open it in write mode as file, and I'm going to say json dot dump the object. What is the object? Object is my dictionary, and where I should dump in the file. So if I do this, and now if I go back, and I should have dictionary dot json, and if I open this, you see it looks like a dictionary, and it is actually a dictionary, and this dictionary can be read everywhere. So JSON actually supports dictionary and list. It does not support tuple. I'll give you one example. When you do tuple, it will also become a list, but it supports dictionary and it supports list. So if I'm saving a dictionary, you see here it is appearing in the form of a dictionary. And if I want to read it back, I can do with open, name of the file dictionary.json, and I'm going to open it in read mode as file, and then I'm going to do json dot load file, and let me call it data. And now if I come and look at data, you see I'm getting the dictionary back. So if I have any dictionary, I can save it as a JSON. Going forward, whenever you are working with anything, if you have a dictionary and you want to save it so that you should be able to access that dictionary later, then you can always save it as a JSON. It's a very good practice, very good safe method of saving any data. Okay, and keep in mind that when you are working with JSON, JSON is very much human readable. Okay, we can open a JSON file just like a text file, and we can read and we can see what are the things inside a JSON file. So it is a very human readable format in which data is stored. And Python objects like list, list, dictionary, and tuple can be saved in a JSON format. Although tuple will not be saved as a tuple also gets converted as a list, but it can be saved. So let me just try for a tuple also. Let me create my tuple. Let me say 5678. Okay, and if I run the same code here, instead of dictionary, let me make it tuple, and let me make it my tuple. If I save this and if I go back here, I should have a tuple file here. Let me refresh tuple.json, And if you open this, you see it has again become a list. So JSON by nature, it does not support tuple. It will convert it to a list. So if you read it back, if you read it back in read format, okay. Sorry, what happened? Tuple.json, sorry. And if I come and look at data, tuple was saved, but it got saved as a list. And when I'm reading it back, it came as a list. So if you want to have tuple property, then you can convert it to tuple so that you have data in a tuple format. Okay, so this is about working with Python objects like list and dictionary. But if you have some other object like a function, or when we learn about oops concepts, we'll also need to save our own custom objects. In that case, JSON will not be suitable. So JSON, the purpose of JSON is to save your lists and your tuples and your dictionaries. Now let us talk about Pickle. What is Pickle and where Pickle is going to be, where we are going to use Pickle. So now let us talk a little bit about the pickle, uh, usage of pickle in Python. So sometime back I was talking about serialization, where I said that serialization is converting Python object to a byte stream or to binary data. And then I gave example of JSON. So JSON exactly is not storing anything in binary data. JSON is still in a human readable format. You can see that when we saved something as a JSON or we saved something as a dictionary, it is still in a human readable format. Just that when we read it back, the property of it being a list or a dictionary is maintained. Now we are going to see how we can store something as a binary data, how we can serialize something and store it as a binary data. There are multiple ways of doing it, but in order to save a Python object as a binary data, we usually use Pickle library. So let us see an example, and then we will talk about images. Okay, so Pickle is usually used to store all kinds of Python objects. So right now, when I say Python objects, for you, you might only be able to think about list, dictionary, set, tuple, and strings and functions, because these are the things we have covered so far. But in the future, when we talk about oops, we will also learn about creating custom objects of our own. So those objects also can be saved as Pickle. Later on, when you learn about machine learning, when we create machine learning or deep learning models or any kind of model, those models also we will very often save as pickles. So basically, Pickle is a way of storing any Python object so that it can be read later. Now Pickle is not universal. Pickle is only for Python environment. When we talked about JSON, I told you it is universal. It can be used across different environments, across different platforms. If you're writing code in Python, someone else wants to read the JSON file in JavaScript, someone wants to in the front end wants to use it, someone in the back end wants to use it. JSON is readable, applicable everywhere. But Pickle is only for Python. Pickle is only for saving Python objects. So now let us see how Pickle is used, and then we will talk a little bit more about applications of Pickle. But first, let us understand what Pickle does. Okay, so let me take the same example. Let me take this list of names here, and I also had a tuple somewhere. Okay, let me take this tuple also. Okay, so for Pickle also, I need to, so for Pickle as well, I need to import Pickle. Okay, and then we need to open, let me say I'm going to open, I will say dictionary dot pkl. Okay, so for Pickle we use the extension pkl commonly, and then I'm going to use w. Till now we were using w for writing, but now we are not going to write anything because w is for writing only strings. Okay, now we are going to write it as binary, so we are going to write wb. Wb means write binary, write binary. Okay, and I'm going to say as file, and then I will say file dot, sorry, I'll say pickle dot dump, and then let us say what it says. It says object and file. So what is the object? I want to save the object list of names on in what, in file. Okay, so I'll do this, and then I have saved this file as a pickle. I have saved this list of names as a pickle. So let me go to my file explorer and see whether I have any pickle file here. Yes, I have a dictionary.pickle. So if I open it, you will not be able to see what is there in that pickle file because it is in a binary format. Okay, so you will not be able to read it. You will have to read it in Python and convert it from binary back to a human readable format. Only then you will be able to see it. So it is actually serializing the data and converting it to a non-human readable format, which is binary data. Okay, so let me come back here and now I have saved this pickle. Now I want to load this pickle, so I'll say with open, and I'm going to say dictionary.pickle, and here I'm going to read binary data. So instead of R, I'm going to use RB, okay, as file. Then I'm going to say pickle dot load, and I'm going to say file, and this is going to be my data. So I'm expecting this data to be my dictionary. Okay, so if I come back here and if I see data, sorry, not dictionary, the list of names is what we had passed. Okay, so this is how pickle is used. Now the same example you can extend and you can take it to tuple also. So tuple in JSON was converted to list. Let us see what happens if we um, save a tuple, because pickle is specific to Python, so I think it should support tuple also. So I'm going to say tuple dot pkl, and I'm going to say my tuple as file, and let me come here, and I should have a tuple.pkl file here, if you can see. Okay, now I'm going to try to read that file again. Let me close all these tabs. Okay, now I'm going to come and try to read this tuple file here. I'm going to say tuple.pkl, and now if I look at data, you see I'm getting the tuple back. It's not getting converted to list or anything. So any Python object, if we want to store it for future reference, or if we want to persist that information, we can use pickle. Now other than these list, dictionary and tuple, we also have something called as functions. Okay, so there will be some limitations around storing functions, but before we discuss on that, let us first see an example. So suppose if I write a function to print multiplication table, suppose I have a function and I want to save this function for some reason. Usually we don't store functions because um, functions are not data. Functions are anyway written, so you have the code files. But right now, because we don't know oops, so I cannot give you an example of custom objects, how to pickle custom objects. So just to show you that any Python object can be pickled, I'm taking this example, but pickling functions is not something that you are going to do commonly. Okay, so I'm going to take this function. This function will take number, and it will say for I in range 10, it is going to print f string. Okay, and it is going to take number times I is equal to number into I. Okay, so this is the function that will print a multiplication table of any number. So let me give print multiplication table of 5. So it is printing 5 dot I. This should be I here, and this should start from 1. Okay, so you see it is printing the multiplication table of 5. So now I want to save this function. So I can also pickle this function. I will say with open uh, multiplication function dot pickle, as I'm going to open this file in write binary mode. I'm going to say as file, and then I'm going to say pickle dot dump, and I'm going to say file. Okay, if I do this, sorry, I need to provide what I need to pickle. So I will say print multiplication table. So this is actually a function. Okay, functions are also objects in Python. So if you're finding it little bit difficult to understand what I mean when I say functions are also objects, then don't worry. You can make peace with the fact that pickles are used to store this list, dictionary and tuple, and you can ignore this example for now if it is confusing you. Okay, because this is anyway not something that you're going to do very often, but just to show you that all Python objects can be pickled, I'm taking this example. Okay, so I'm going to do this pickle.dump, and if I come here, you will. So here now we have this multiplication function.pickle. We have saved this function as a pickle file. Now I'm going to read the same pickle file here to show you that this pickle file actually contains the function that we wrote. So I'm going to say with open, I'm going to say multiplication function.pkl, and I'm going to read it as binary, and I'm going to say as file. Okay, and then I'm going to say pickle dot load, and if you press tab while writing load, you will get load and load s. Similarly, when you do JSON also, JSON dot load, it gives load and load s. So what is load s? Load s stands for load string. So I'll just give you an example of that in a moment. Just keep in mind. And load, I'm going to say file. Okay, and I'm going to save this as function. And now let me do this function if I have. Okay, you see this function is that of a print multiplication table. So if I call this function just like how I would call multiplication, print multiplication table, if I call this function with 9, you see it is printing the table of 9, because this function is actually the same as this print multiplication table. This function itself I had saved and I read it back. Again, I'm repeating, this is not something that you are going to do. Just for an example I have shown you. Later when you learn about oops, then I will give you more examples on how pickles are used. Okay, now so this is all about working with JSON and pickle. Mm, one more thing I want to show you about JSON that I did not show you earlier, which is about converting a JSON to a string, which you will sometimes use when you are working with APIs. So I'll just give you one example of that. Suppose I have my dictionary here. Okay. So let me give the heading here, JSON to strings. Okay. So we call this type of strings as JSONified strings. I'll give you an example what I mean. So if I do here JSON dot dump s, okay, instead of dump I'm doing dump s. I'm not my dictionary, suppose I do. Okay, if I do this, you see what I'm getting here. I'm not writing in any file, I'm just converting this dictionary to a string. Dictionary to a string. If you do str of my dictionary, okay, this is also one string representation of a dictionary. This is actually a string, but inside the string we have a dictionary. But here you see, this is also the same thing, but this type of string we will call it as a JSONifiable. JSONifiable. This is an informal word people usually use it. JSONifiable string, which means that this string can be converted back to JSON. Okay, so this type of format is very commonly used sometimes. So this type of representation of dictionary or objects are commonly used when we are working in APIs, where we have to send a JSON in a string format. In that case we use these kind of things. Okay, and if you take this and if you want to convert this string back to JSON, we can say JSON dot, we were using load, instead of load we will use load s, and I will write this, then you see I'm getting the JSON back. If you convert it in any other way, then it may or may not work. If I do str dot my dictionary, see this is also a dictionary which is a string, but it may or may not be a JSONifiable string. So if I take this, it may or may not work. JSON dot load s, if I do this, you see I'm getting an error. It is, I'm getting a JSON decode error. JSON decode error, which means that this string cannot be converted back to JSON. Usually the reason is, commonly you will find that single inverted comma should be outside and double inverted comma should be inside. Then that is a mark of a JSONifiable string. So very often you will see this kind of a conversion of string to JSON and JSON to string. So in that case you have to be a little bit careful. So just be careful that when you see this load s, it usually means that you are reading from a string. Also sometimes when you work with APIs, the API will return you a string format which will be a valid JSONifiable string. So in that case, you, in order to convert that to a Python dictionary, you will use load s. So this load s also comes in handy a lot of times. So that's why I just wanted to point out the difference between load and load s, dump and dump s. Okay, so I hope till here all of you are now very much clear on what is JSON, where is JSON used, and what is pickle, where is pickle used. I will just clarify one more time that we are using JSON to store Python objects like list, dictionary, tuple in a human readable format. And these are universal JSON format, or universal format which all platforms can accept and they can work with. In fact, it is a accepted format to transfer data through APIs. Okay, now then comes pickle. Pickle is when we are serializing a Python object and storing it as a binary. Pickle is not universal. Pickle is specific to Python, but any kind of Python object we can convert it to binary and we can save it and then we can read it. So these are the two most common ways in which binary file handlings of Python objects are usually seen in Python. There is also one more library which is joblib. Joblib is also again very similar to pickle, but at this point I will not talk about it. Maybe sometime sometime later we can use it. But Pickle is more commonly used, and whatever you are doing with Pickle, same thing you can do with Joblib also. It's an alternate library of doing the same thing. Okay. Now, finally, I want to just show you how we can read images in Python. Okay, so how do we read image? So images are also binary data in Python. Images are also just binary data, except that when it is plotted you see all the colors and everything, but ultimately it is just binary data. So if you want to read any image or write any image, we will use a normal file handler. So here I have one image. I have downloaded an image. Where is it? Here. So you see this is an image. Let me zoom out. So we'll see how we can read this image in Python. I will not show you how to show this image in Python, because again that needs a separate library. We'll see that later. But I'll show you how we can create a copy of this image. Okay, suppose we have this image here, and it is called as Rohit and Virat.jpg. I will create a copy of this file using Python. Okay, so we'll also read this file. So I'll show you. So I'm going to say with open, and I'm going to say Rohit and Virat.jpg, and I'm going to read it in binary because it is a binary file. I'm going to say as file, then I'm going to say data is equal to file.read. Now, if I look at data, you see this is the data. This is actually the image information from the image. This itself is the image. Okay. If I write this data back, if I write this data back, then we will get the image, copy of the image. So we'll say with open, and I will say copy image dot jpg, jpg, png, whatever you want to keep, and I will say write binary as file, and I will say file dot write. And when I say write binary, whenever we are writing something, it has to be of the binary nature. So here if you see data, you see it is starting with b, which is that it is encoded. It is encoded, it is in the bytes, it is in the byte format. So if you do type on this, it is not a string, it is bytes. Okay, so it is in binary format. I can come here and I can say data, and it will write the file. And now if I go back here, you see I will have another file somewhere, copy what is the name I gave, sorry, copy image.jpg. So I should have, let me zoom out, where is it, copy image.jpg here, and you can see this is 400 kb. The actual file was also 400 kb. So I have read an image and then I have copied it. Okay, you can see this is a copy of the image that I have created. Now you can also see the image in Python, but that is not what I wanted to show. But okay, let us see how we can see. I think we'll need a Python, we'll need a pillow library. So you can go and search, there's a pillow library. Let me say see image in Python. Okay, so let me just do a quick Google search. Okay, so you can come here, how to display an image. You can come, you can use matplotlib library. No, okay, so I want to use this. So pillow library is there very commonly. Again, this is something extra. I just, because we are on the subject, I just want to show you image.open, and here I can say rohitvirat.jpg. You see, you will be able to see the image, whatever image we have written, whatever image we read, we are able to read it using Python. I think there is also one alternate way here somebody has written, so we can try that also. ipython dot display image. Let us say rohitvirat.jpg. Okay, so here in the notebook itself you are able to open the image. So these are some ways to see work with image. Again, image and all we'll see much later when we are in deep learning and machine learning modules. But in this video I just wanted to show you that how you can read binary files, how you can write binary files, and how you can serialize the data, deserialize the data, how do you work with JSONs and pickles, etc. So this is all in this video, and in the coming video we'll do a little bit of practice. We have covered a lot of ground in file handling in Python even in the previous video. So whatever we have learned in the previous video and this video, we are going to take some questions and small practical scenarios, and we are going to practice so that the concept is set solid in our brains before we move ahead to the next module. So I hope all of you will watch the video, take your time and practice whatever I've shown in the two videos, and then in the next video we'll do little bit more of coding on practical some small practical examples. Okay, thank you, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.